This is the REI Arete ASL 2. This is REI's most expensive two-person tent. It's meant to take all seasons, so that means rain and snow. So let's find out if it does what it claims to. But first, before we get into the rain test, let's first check out this tent's waterproofing features. The first is seam taping. All the corners of the tent have perfectly taped seams, and the webbings near the corners are also perfectly taped. The seam taping goes up about 8 inches and stops there. Everything else above isn't taped. There's also a seam running across the flooring and it was taped too. This is not a tub floor, it's just a flooring with lots of seams on it, but thankfully all the seam taping was great. As for the rainfly, every single seam was taped perfectly. You can see the outline of the seam taping here. Next, we have the rainfly vents. The Arete has 3 vents, 1 at the back and 2 top vents near the front, so 3 altogether. What I didn't like is that these vents cannot be opened or closed from the inside. Even if I try to reach over the door and get under the vents, there's still another layer of mesh blocking my way from reaching them. Luckily, none of these vents leaked in the heavy rain, although if there's more horizontal rain, you may want to keep the top vents closed because the angle is more like sideways instead of downwards. The last feature for now is the full coverage rainfly. It extends almost all the way down to the ground, leaving just a small gap at the bottom. I really love that this tent has so many extra stake-out points at the bottom of the rainfly, so you can literally get every single side of the rainfly staked down. This really helped in the heavy rain test, which is coming right up. For the first rain test, I put this tent through about 2 hours of heavy rain. About 1 hour in, the rain lightened up a bit, so I checked it out and found that it was still completely dry, with not a single drop of water inside the tent at all. At about 1.5 hours in, I noticed that some parts of the rainfly were starting to look damp and water was soaking through. This includes the vent fabric and the vestibule rain flap. And after 2 hours of heavy rain, it stopped raining completely, so I checked the tent and found that the whole rainfly was completely drenched. Also, there was some minor pooling at the top because of the heavy rain, and after the rainfly got damp, the water just dripped through the rainfly and onto the top fabric panel. So when I opened it, the water dripped right into the tent, but to be fair, it's not a whole lot of leakage, so not too bad overall. As for the vents, they didn't leak even though I kept them open the whole time. The seams didn't leak as well, neither did the flooring at the bottom, and that takes us into our next rain test. Now, for the second rain test, I put the Arete through 48 hours of non-stop rain. Here were the test conditions. The rain started off light, stayed moderate most of the time, but at some points it got super heavy and even crazy at times based on the official rain intensities. But one thing's for sure, it was really 48 hours of non-stop rain. So 48 hours later, when the rain finally stopped, I checked in on the tent and here are the results. Shockingly, there was not a single drop of water into the tent, but when I looked closer, here's what I found. First, you might have guessed, the entire rainfly was completely soaked. Second, even at the bottom of the inner tent, the part where the rainfly doesn't cover the tent, right at the bottom, this is also very damp, so anything you put up against the walls will also get wet. Third, I thought the seams were dry, but when I pressed on them, I noticed that the water will start to seep through. So the only thing that was still dry were the vents. Overall, here's what I like to typically look at when rain testing my tents. Whether there's a tub floor, good seam taping, vents that can be kept open in the rain, and the rainfly coverage. Of course, I've also provided pretty much a complete summary of all my test results on the screen as well. And here are my pros and cons. First and biggest pro, I love the guide out points on a rainfly. When I guide everything out, it kept this soggy, wet rainfly away from the tent body at all times. So even though the nylon fly only lasted 2 hours in the heavy rain, there were no leaks in the tent at all. If you don't dye the whole fly out, though, the soggy fly will stick to the tent body and everything inside will just get even wetter. Second pro, none of the vents leaked at all. There aren't a lot of cons, but one improvement I'd make is to either have the rainfly come down lower or change the material of the flooring because nylon isn't the most hydrophobic in non-stop rain. But apart from that, considering that it rained non-stop for 48 hours, there being not much leakage in the tent was actually pretty good performance. But waterproofing isn't the only thing you should look at in a tent, so check out this video on the screen for a full review of this tent. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in that one.